Just want to welcome everybody to another episode of Behind the Sweet Science, a boxing podcast. We got a very special guest today, Peter Kid Chocolate Quillin. How we doing today, Pete?
I'm blessed. I'm glad to be here with you today.
All right, man. All right, great. I appreciate you joining us for sure. And I just want to start off in the beginning. I know you were born in Chicago. You were raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And how was it like really getting into the sport of boxing? What was it like just starting off what was your introduction into the sport of boxing?
I don't know, dude. Every family has a fan that's that's in the family that's a fan of boxing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So boxing kept being reintroduced to me by different people within my life, my older brother, and then just watching fights, and then didn't know that was something that was available to me. And I had a senior elder in me that's in my city that was involved with my life named Rodney Joby. And Rodney Joby introduced me to boxing, gave me my first pair of boxing gloves. Because he knew I was fighting in the street, and he's like, take the ball. He said, try to handle your problems with these. And we was taking those gloves to every community around, and I was boxing everybody in different communities.
Right. That's awesome. And you actually grew up, I read it somewhere that you grew up on the same block as Floyd Mayweather. Was that true?
Yeah, yeah. Francis in Grand Rapids, Michigan. His family still, you know, I think I want to say they still kind of like live in that area still. So
Right.
yeah, I grew up on that same street, and then my dad and his father, Floyd Mayweather Senior. My dad was in the streets doing street stuff, and Floyd was involved a lot of the different times, being involved and interacting with my father at different times.
Right. All right. So another thing I would like to ask, when you started training, right, and you started going to the boxing gyms and stuff like that, at what point in that whole process did you realize like, hey, I could actually compete with these guys and actually get in the ring and fight?
Honestly, I don't think you ever know that unless you just do it every day and it was something that became repetition and you get to see moments in your life, especially in my time with boxing, that I could celebrate those times and those times with how it made me feel. And it just made me keep being excited to keep going back and keep learning and keep getting better, and then seeing how well people will react to it when they see me spar, or the power and all that, and just ask me how long I've been boxing. And I wasn't boxing that long, but getting to the point where it's like, no, I became a world champion.
Right. And as far as the amateurs, you didn't have really an extended amateur career. Is that correct?
No, because when I was introduced through the streets, meaning like I was in the streets fighting, and then
Right.
I actually walked into a boxing gym at like 15 years old, where it's like I was still dealing with the street. When I'm saying dealing with the streets, is like my mom had like really lost control of like me being able to discipline me. I was like, I got to the point where my mom, spanking me with a belt wasn't doing nothing. It was just like,
Right.
stop, mom, stop. What are you doing? And then
Right.
get to the point where it's like I'm in the streets, so the streets started to become like a parent to me. The people within the streets I respected, people in the streets that taught me different stuff, and I was introduced to like drugs and women at a very very young age. So it was like I was one foot in the street and one foot in the boxing gym,
Right.
and what I learned in my career, that's not something you can do.
Right. So you had about how many fights as an amateur? I believe it was like 15
15.
fights. 15
Yeah,
fights.
15. But
Okay.
and I was just talking about this with the kids in the gym that I work out in the Bronx, where it's like um what happened was kids in the Bronx, I was telling them like, first time I got stopped as an amateur, that kind of scared me a little bit, rattled me, and made me, because I knew why I got stopped. I wasn't putting 100% into going to the gym. I was smoking and doing stuff like that at that age. But then you can get really hurt in boxing, and
Right.
I got stopped, and that kind of scared me. And I got stopped again in Detroit, so two times being stopped as an amateur with 15 amateur fights is kind of like was making me confused about if I wanted to box or not. And getting to that point to one time where my brother basically said, you need to stop telling people you're a boxer until you Commit yourself. And I committed myself at a time. 2002, I won a ringside national tournament as a
Okay.
novice, 156 pounds. And that right there made me feel like, man, I can do something great in boxing.
Right.
So it
Yeah.
was
So
only 15 amateur fights.
right, the dedication and the determination is always something that's a massive role in boxing. Because you got to persevere. If it happens, you get stopped, or you might get whooped in sparring or something like that. I think the greats really just stick to it and they just keep going, and I think that's the separation from the people that don't make it, and then the people that wind up making it in the sport.
Can I tell you what the difference is?
Tell me.
The mindset.
Right.
Now my mindset now totally changed. Like how all the tools that what you said, perseverance, the sacrifice, all those attributes that you place into boxing,
Right.
I carried that into other areas of my life, and I could just tell you it's usually a mindset thing. So now I learned it was like my mind, conquering my mind in moments when you was in the gym and going through all the thoughts and the negative ideas that's popping in your mind and overcoming those ideas and getting to the point where you just have a clear understanding about yourself. And which in parts of my life I was always confused because I grew up with a traumatic childhood that really honest trauma kind of block how I see myself a lot of times, and it still do to this day.
Right. So what was it like to turn pro, and what was the decision? You had the 15 fights. You won a ringside tournament, and you decided to turn pro. What did it take to kind of get into that that process of turning professional?
That's crazy because man, I would just say things just lined up for me to be able to say yes or no, and make every decision was it was that I was making was it was like kind of leading me to being professional. Because like if I go to if a person comes to me and say, what do I do to be a professional, and I wouldn't know where to start to tell them, because like
Right.
honestly I had 15 amateur fights. I basically was homeless, all these different things happened, and for some reason, why did somebody see something in me? Martin Snow hooked me up with a manager. I got with Colin Morgan, and all these different things started happening where I basically everything was lined up, and it was like I started taking off. So I got with a manager named John C. God rest his soul, just passed away. Um, but he basically put money into me, invest me. I was
Right.
living on the Lower East Side on Second Street, and found the mattress in the trash. Staying with a pastor that I know in the Bronx, his son allowed me to stay at his crib, and that's why I was staying at. And that manager came, and he changed a lot of part of my life at the time. Got me an apartment. I was staying in that apartment, and I feel like at that point when I'm like having people investing their money into me, I'm like, I gotta go to work.
Right.
And he basically started advising me and getting me to the point where it's like I was, by the time I turned around, I'm like 19-0.
Right.
So I figured like what happened is you know, winning and being dedicated in your mindset. When people get to see that outside looking in, they see something different in you, and you're happy. It's like me for me. It's like that's why I'm a big believer in God, and that's only because if you ask this question, that I can like lose my mind trying to think about how to answer them. 'Cause I'm like, yeah, how did that happen? How did this happen? How did that happen? But I was just like, yeah, it's like totally paid out and laid out in a way where I'm at complete solace with myself right now.
Right. Like it was kind of meant to be.
Yes.
Right. So all
Yeah, like
right.
right
So
now, like look, let me just say this real quick. So like what you doing right now, right? You obviously doing what you love to do, right?
right.
How did you get to where you are right now?
Just probably 20 years of obsessing over the sport. Really, that's kind of and just keep doing it. Just keep and saying I'm going to do something, and then just put my mind to it and do it.
Now, how many people try to change your mind towards that idea? How many people?
Uh, a decent amount. I would say a decent amount. But
So
I
it's the
just
same. It's the same then, right?
right, absolutely, absolutely. They'll tell you certain things. Oh, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna work out. It
Yeah.
ain't gonna do this, and you just kind of keep persevering. Just and keep pushing. So all right. So when you turned pro, obviously you started out real hot. You had a lot of knockouts early on, a very big puncher. But I want to get into the first fight. I want to get into because you had a lot of big fights and a lot of notable names on your record. First fight I want to talk about is a fight you had in April of 2008. It was in New York. I want to say it was at the Hammerstein Ballroom. I want to say it was, and you fought against a very durable opponent named Antoine Eccles. Can we talk about that fight and basically? Obviously, it was a big step up fight. So, what was the feeling? What was the feeling going into a fight like that against a guy like Antoine Eccles?
Every time you go into a fight, you always gotta size them up in a way that I go look at them on the internet, and then the parts of it like, damn, can I really fight this guy? And then really challenge yourself to say, I
Right,
gotta look for the weaknesses in this chink to say he can't mess with me. And that's
right,
how I did that over and over and over and over and over again.
right,
Whereas like I didn't think, even though we was up in there, and he was really trying to like he was fighting like a vet, and I really went up and out. My whole thing in boxing was like, how do they like? First of all, you can for my first 4 round fight where I had to go the distance, I was so tired. I'm like, I don't want to go 10 rounds. I'm
right,
going 12 rounds. Like, yo. So I felt like that in the round with Antoine Eccles, and I got out of that fight. And basically, every time I would fight a guy like that, and how I felt after, I was make I got to make sure I'm running. I make sure that
right,
I got to go beyond just like working out. I got to make sure that 100% that I feel like I did everything it takes to be able to win. You know what I
right,
mean? That's how my mind started to switch. So fighting Antoine Eccles was a good experience for me. It taught me that I was climbing up the ladder, and I think that every challenge a fighter really get, he got to step up to the plate and tell himself why he deserved to be there and to win.
right. Yeah, that was an excellent fight, excellent performance, and I think in late in the fight, I want to say around 9 or 10. It seemed like he was going to go down, but man, Antoine was just a tough dude, and he could take the shots really well. And he just kept pushing forward, and he really pushed you to the limit, and you came out on top, and it was a very impressive unanimous decision victory over Antoine Eccles.
Yes.
Right. So after that fight, was the mindset kind of different? Like knowing, were you saying to yourself, like, "Hey, now I know that I can compete with the top guys, and I know I could be a top middleweight," or was there still kind of some doubt after that fight?
I don't know. Honestly, that's hard to answer that question. What I would tell you is like, me personally never believed the hype around me. Never.
Really? Well,
I just want to tell you.
that's usually what pushes the fighters to keep going. So,
Yeah, just came. I told myself if I believe what they say, maybe I'm not gonna work the way I'm supposed to be working.
right,
So
that's
everything
definitely
was like deciding to make a decision not to believe that the nothing that the public was saying about me, but making sure that I knew exactly how I wanted to approach every situation and how I want to be walking in dignity when I wasn't at those. When I'm teaching these kids at the gym now, it's like teaching them a mindset that say, "Yo, you got to step up to the plate." And even though that you're not ready, maybe you feel like you're not ready, you gotta remind yourself that you've already been there. Like
right,
that's how you can make believe that you already be there and how you want to showcase yourself there.
right. All right. So after that, I want to go to another big fight that you had that was also to me like a big step up fight against the former fighter that was on a contender, Jesse Brinkley, who was another very durable opponent that was around a long time, had a lot of big fights, fought a lot of really good fighters, and you really destroyed him. You know, you took him out in 3 rounds, I believe, and that was like a really big step up fight for you. And that kind of really put you on the map. You know, after the fight with Jesse Brinkley, to kind of really let people know and all the other fighters that you're going to be a top dog in the division. What was kind of your thought process going into the fight with Brinkley?
Well, most people was outside and say, "Yo, Jesse Brinkley was smoking a cigarette." Like that
Really?
before the fight. Yeah, so I guess it was like he was nervous to fight me.
Right.
And I ain't find that to be true, but like that fight was me celebrating, like like every opportunity I had right there was like, oh man, I'm at this point in my life and this my career that I have to just be like I gotta one reminder I always had is like when the cameras was on me, it wasn't never like I had to be another person. when the camera
Right.
was on me, I'm inviting them to see who I am as a person. So
Right.
I had to make sure that my dignity will be standing on what I usually what how I, like Senator Kushner told me something like I had gotten into a incident with an ex girlfriend where I destroyed her car because she
Right.
took some money out of my account and I destroyed her car and I ended up going to jail for that and Senator Kushner was like called me was like yo all the stuff that you ever be making people believe about you if they found out this goes out the window. So,
Right.
I basically had to get to the point where it's like every time I was stepping up to those points, it's like I was conducting myself the way I seen myself. And like my hard work was getting me those things. And I always made sure I was inviting them to see what my heart was at. So I take every victory, every fight I was on, I was fighting like I was celebrating the training that I've done.
Right. Right. So, all right. So after that fight, you took on Hall of Fame boxer who was just an excellent fighter, always a tough out, no matter the age, no matter what point in the career he was, And that was against Ronald Winky Wright in June of 2012. And I actually watched that fight the other day for the first time, probably since 2012. And, it was just a masterful performance. I don't think I remember anybody ever hurting Winky. And you heard him and you had him down in that fight. And, like I said, that was just a really big win for you. And again, not anyone was able to do that to Winky Wright, so that was definitely an impressive win. And what was the thought kind of going into a fight with Winky? I know he was off for about 2 years before that. He fought Paul Williams, I believe, and then you guys met up in June of 2012.
Well, before the fight, something happened. First of all, that day, that fight was my dad's 32-year anniversary being in America, defected from Cuba. So
Right,
that was an anniversary for my pops on that. So that's why I had a Cuban flag in the back of my head is because
right,
celebrating my dad's story that he's given to me. But what I would tell you is like I remember him when Twitter was out, he was tweeting what's her name? Muhammad Ali's daughter
Layla
and
Ali.
they was going back first. Yes, it was they talking online. He's like, he said, see, like when you fight Ronald Boom Boom, he's like, yeah, you probably don't know the dude's name. Is like Kid Chocolate. I'm gonna go up in there. Like he's like, I'm some nobody. I said, well, and that during that time, you would hear me always talking about I'm gonna knock Winky right to Pluto because it
Right,
was like a mixtape. Future, the rapper, at that time he was talking about astronaut status, like he's on a different level. And
right,
I was like dubbing myself animal status. So I was gonna go animal status on him. I'm gonna be an animal. I'm gonna train myself to get him out of there, and that's how my mindset. So I never let him do nothing before the fights, all the antics that he had, to like ruin what I thought I was gonna do to him. So basically, like I said, I was working very hard for that fight. I felt really good. For me, it was one of my best fights because of how the feeling that I had going into the
right.
fight and what I was doing in the ring, I felt like it was probably one of the most easiest fights that I had. Not to say I was knocking them down with kind of fight, a quality fight. I'm just talking about how I felt in that fight was that it
Right.
made me feel like it was one of my best fights.
Right. Yeah, it absolutely was. I mean, that was a very, very good performance that night. And then after that, you went and you fought Hassam Nadam, and you won a
Yeah.
vacant WBO world middleweight title. So when you got the call about that fight, obviously, you were coming up and you wanted to have a shot at the title. Was that a guy that you had on your radar, going into that fight?
No, because they used to like later in my career, I started sitting down with Al and we have a conversation where like what type of people I want to fight and stuff. Like who you want to see, who you see yourself fighting, lining those up like that. So when I didn't really want to fight Winky Wright, before I fought him, I said, "Why? What is that gonna do to me?" He's like, "Yo, this gonna get you a title shot." I said, oh, "Okay," and I took the fight, and then fighting this guy Hassan Nundam, which I didn't know nothing about him until it was like this was the fight that I had to take. This who are you fighting, and I had to gotta learn about this guy. So I went out there and learned, and every time when I looked, my eye contact with him um made me feel uneasy and I was like because everybody give you something different from their eyes but he gave me
Right.
like now I know what it was like a nervous feeling like and to me the most scariest person to fight is somebody that's nervous, because nerves can give them something that, somebody without nerves can get them, like a
Right.
reaction. So, um, so he was in front of my eyes and he was like nervous and like how he was moving, and I
Right.
was like, okay. So then, and then when we get in the fight, when I kept knocking him down, it's like every time I knocked him down, I was like, okay, he out. Because the way I felt, how I connected those punches, he got to be out. But he was getting back up. And one of the last times he got back up, it was like he fell straight down and my mind was playing. I seen him like get up, like he didn't even like step up. He's like rose on the cross. He got up like
Right.
that.
Right.
That's how I seen him. So yeah, but yeah, that was another good fight, good performance, and that performance that got me like solidified to be able to be one of the top contenders at that weight.
Right. Yeah. So winning that title, that kind of made it feel like it was all worth it, right? Once you got that title.
Nah,
Well, no,
nah.
really.
I'm gonna tell you why. Man, listen, do you know how much I struggled to get to that point in my life? Do you know how to all the bull crap that I got to all the bull crap that I went through to get to that point? Do you know what I've been through?
No, not
So
everything.
much, so much, so much. I remember somebody telling me, I'm gonna keep that name. Somebody told me I wasn't gonna never be nothing. Told me that.
Right.
And I said, I'm gonna be the one that does XYZ for you. I'm gonna be there for you more than you ever been here for me. I was in the locker room, fast forward, and the how the moment of me winning the belt, I got to see everybody in the room, the faces and everything. I felt the presence there that it made me feel like I lost. And I
Really.
said that because the person that told me that was in the locker room, and they said they was proud of me, and that they was proud of me, and they knew I could do it. But I was like, no, you told me that was gonna never be nothing, and this moment happened. So that day is the first day I felt like I lost something.
Wow.
I felt like
Really.
reality, yeah, reality. I felt lost. I felt like I had more to learn to be the word to, and that's where my mental mind state had what started to impact me the most. That's what I would tell you.
Wow. That's interesting. So after that, was there any thoughts of maybe trying to unify the titles at that time, or was it just too much politics in the game?
Yeah, up until that point when a world title, like I've been like dubbing trying to fight like Sergio Martinez, Kelly Pavlik, like all those
Right.
people I see myself at that time, and then getting to the point where it's like I just believe when you keep winning, those opportunities gonna come.
Right.
That's what I felt. So like, you know, like, you know, like I said, coming in the game the way I came in the game, and the person, my upbringing, all that thing, play a big factor how I view myself, how I view the world, and I just like I never was getting caught up telling myself this is what I felt like. Just keep working, and all those things gonna come. That's what happened.
Right. Keep pushing. So all right. So after the title win, you had a very impressive performance against a very tough, durable Dominican fighter named Fernando Guerrero, who you actually stopped in 7 rounds. And kind of like the Nadam fight, he was all over the place. I mean, I don't know how many times you knocked him down. I think it was around maybe
Four,
4 times. Yeah.
4 times.
And he just kept getting up, and he was on shaky legs, and you were just landing massive shots. And you stopped him in 7 rounds. Again, another very impressive performance.
Yeah. So I believe my total knockdowns in all of my fights is 32.
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
32 knockdowns in all of my fights.
You were definitely a massive puncher, and I've been watching all your fights recently. Like I told you when I seen you last time at the fights, and one thing I noticed, I think right away one of the first few fights I watched, I said to myself, "Wow, he really looks and kind of punches like Tito Trinidad." You had the wide stance and the way that left hook would just kind of sweep, and even the right hand. You had dynamite in both hands, and that was something that I remember not really knowing until I went back and watched all the fights. I said, "Wow, like I knew you punched hard, but after watching all the other fights, I'm like, he's knocking everyone down. You were stopping a lot of the guys, and I was definitely impressed with the power." So, but after that fight with Fernando
Look at my
Guerrero,
hand.
I'm about to say, did you break your hand a couple of times?
I know I had my thumb. I had surgery on my thumb right here,
Okay.
and basically like it was broken, it was hurting, but I didn't know what was wrong. But boxers learn to tolerate pain. So
Right.
my thumb was broken, and I didn't know that. I was like training with that joint, and it healed up wrong, so I had to get it rebroken, and
Wow.
and they got to fix. Then my knuckle right here, my metacarpal tendon there. Same
Right.
thing. I was punching. I was like sparring with it. And when I found it, it was like hurting so bad. Like I knew now I know like the pain was like messing me up. I went to Dr. Malone, one of the best hand doctors in New York.
Right.
Did surgery on my hand, but I had a ruptured tendon in my hand that my nerve was exposed. So I
Right.
got surgery on that, and yeah, so yeah, I didn't break my hand, but I ruptured tendons and broke a bone in my hand, and then and you see that that's a bunch of calcium buildup in my
Rather
hand.
say, yeah, it looks like a lot of like bone calcium and tissue, right? Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. All right. So after the Guerrero fight, that was a nice performance, and you defended your title. October 2013, you fought against another very, very durable opponent who is just a who's who. He fought everybody, from, I don't know if he might even still be active. He's been fighting everyone for the last 10, 15 years. And that was against Gabriel Rosado. So going into that fight, what was the feeling with a fighter like Rosado, knowing he's going to be there all night, knowing he's going to be right in your face and fighting, not backing down? But what was the feeling like going into the fight with Rosado that night?
Rosado, the only fighter in my career that got me like to the point where it's like he got underneath my skin,
Really?
like all the way up here, because he was trying to fight me for a long time, and it wasn't like I was sitting out there like, let me fight him. Like I feel like when people want to fight somebody, it's because they picking weaknesses in the person they see.
Right.
It's not really like a challenge. Like it's not really a challenge for me to pick out who you think
You could
is
beat.
strong. Like yeah. Like I'm not like I just didn't have that wasn't my mindset towards fighting. I be like hey, my job is to, like the divine whatever is happening. Where it's like you meet a fighter and it's like it's meant to be. Then it's meant to be that So yeah, so like I learned so much off that fight. That was like one of those durable fights. That fight I had one of those mental, like before I told you when I won the title, I had the most mental breakdowns all the time. So mental breakdown was that for that fight. All my family coming in town from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Atlantic City, and how they was talking to Gay Rosado. I'm like, don't tell this guy like I'm gonna destroy him. Like he's gonna try to come and destroy me. Like you
Right.
don't know what I'm able to do because you never been in the gym with me. So how
Right.
y'all know what I'm gonna do unless y'all was in the gym? And I just felt like it was just too fake. So I didn't want none of my. And then my wife before the fight lost the baby. She lost my first
Wow.
son, and so I wasn't able to come back to her. I told her, I said, it's nothing I was going to be able to do to come back. I can't break camp to come back and see you and be there with you. Like, what is that going to do? That's not going to bring the baby back. That's how I was talking. So that put a strain on my relationship. So I felt her holding some contempt towards me because of me abandoning her and her most valued thing in her moment. So,
Right.
what I'm saying? So what happened was, yeah, I had nobody to rely on. So before the night, before the fight, I was like, I had a nervous breakdown. I prayed to God. I said, God, make this fight as hard as you want to. Just let me get out of it and I'm going to make changes. And that's what ended up happening. It was one of my hardest fights
Right.
because of like the mind state I was going into the fight with. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You opened up a big cut on his eye. I think it was in round maybe 9 or 10, and then
Yeah.
the doctor
I
stopped. It's
seen that. I
very
was trying to go. I was
right.
trying to like, when I seen that happen, I'm like, I'm about to open it more. I'm going to
Right.
bust his eye out. That's what I was telling myself.
Right. Yeah, that was a very impressive win against Rosado. But the next thing I want to ask you about, I kind of learned this recently. I found this to be interesting. I read it somewhere that after the Rosado fight, 2014, you actually vacated the title, and there was a mandatory against a guy named Matvey
Matt
Korobov.
Kobarov. Yeah.
Korobov, right. So what was the the reason for vacating the title? Because they said something about the money was going to be better than any of the paydays you had. I feel like there had to be some sort of nonsense behind this because he's not exactly a world beater. So, what was the reason for vacating the WBO title?
And that's all you heard. You heard that.
To be honest, I don't even remember it happening. And again, I've been doing a lot of research, on you recently, and I just read that. And I remember thinking, like, wow, that's an odd situation.
They said Al was so. I went in and met with Al.
Right.
Al was the only one made it feel like. Al was the only one that made it seem like it was okay for me to make the decision to vacate my belt. Because I told him this. I said, "Yo, I have no say. Like I just told you before my before like the Gabriel Rosado fight, my wife that I told you that my wife lost a baby, right?
Right.
I couldn't come to see her. Now, fast forward, now I got my first son being born. My first son being Joaquin. My son Joaquin is being born. Same time around this time, I found out my uncle, one of the ones that was there, like he was dying of cancer.
Wow.
He was dying of pancreatic cancer. So in the moment, I'm at a crossroads of my life. I'm saying, hey, I gain life, and at the same time, I'm losing life. Mentally, I wasn't there, bro. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I wasn't mentally. So I'm like, yo, Al, I understand that I had to go fight sooner or later. But is it right now? My son is just born. I'm in the hospital with him right now, holding him, and I'm like, yo, I can't like I like to have 8 weeks for a training camp. You understand?
Right.
I like to have 8 weeks for a training camp. By the time that I was gonna have to go to camp and go to California, it was gonna be 6 weeks into the fight.
Right.
I said, this is not gonna give me enough time with myself to be able to get ready so I could feel secure that I did everything to make a win. So I was telling Al what they gonna do if I don't decide like the time they said they're gonna vacate, they're gonna strip you. I
Wow.
said, so all this stuff I've ever done to be here, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna have to be told what to do. So what else other options? He said, your other option that you can vacate it. Save yourself the dignity.
Right.
I said, and I sat down and thought for a minute, and it felt like divine inspiration happened to me. And I said, I'm gonna vacate the belt. And the reason why I vacated my belt is like, what type of value do I have? Like, if I got an opportunity to get $1.4 million, I'm not gonna have another opportunity to do that.
Right.
How doesn't I did all this stuff to get a $1.4 million for them to tell me how to get it. So it's like me is for me spiritually where I was at in my life. I read a Bible verse and then destroyed my mind. Said, "What sins do it do for a man to gain the whole world, but he forfeit his soul?" So it's like me saying yeah to that, to that money was basically me selling my soul because I wanted to set aside my own morality and what I knew was right for money. I said I'm not going to do that, and it's like I basically told the devil no, smacked him in his face, and from there that's when my punishment started happening. That's when I believe that what I rep in my whole career, like from drugs, women, like doing all this type of stuff that I was doing, I had to reap it from when me saying no to the devil. God wanted to show me if you're gonna be able to feel like my divine inspiration come now, now you got to reap what's gonna happen after because now you're gonna be punished, and that's what happened.
Yeah. So more, it was kind of like a timing situation that it was. So they couldn't delay the fight or nothing like that. They couldn't push it back like a couple of weeks for you, nothing like that. They kind of gave you a time frame, and it was like, all right, you either commit to it or
And this is the
vacate.
hardest part. I'm sorry, man. Like this is what they did. Like where real decisions happen, right? This is what I learned in life. Like if God is the father of time, right? God gave you enough time to make a decision that's going to be basing in your whole life on it. Do you
Yeah.
realize that?
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That when you have to make a decision, you're gonna have enough time. It's nothing gonna make you feel rushed to make a right type of decision for yourself. You should
Right.
never have to rush to make a decision that's gonna be based on your life. Nothing. So that's
Right.
what I learned.
I could definitely respect that. Yeah, because it was a weird thing reading that. I was like, I didn't really remember it at the time, but looking back at it, it was definitely an odd situation. So after that, you were off for a little bit of time, right? So I guess it was all just like, was it like you were burnt out maybe a little bit, or was it just kind of like a timing thing? You needed a break from everything.
Yeah, I needed a break, and I sat down and was like, went to go see my uncle. By the time I was time to fight again, I spent time with my family, my wife, my kids, and my son at that time, and then it was time for me to fight. I was fighting Andy Lee the next fight, and then
Right.
when I got that fight, I went to go see my uncle. He ended up in the hospital. Now they was talking about he was going to hospice. He was going to do
Wow.
hospice in his house. So this happened when we said no. And then now the next moment I'm having this with my uncle in the room. I'm about to go start training camp in California. So I kiss my kids, my family bye. My kid, bye, boom. I go to Grand Rapids, fly into Grand Rapids, Michigan. My next stop is California. I go to after me taking this fight with Andy Lee. I go and go see my uncle in Michigan. Then I'm flying out. So I see him. I got closure with him. Everything. He told me all these things. Told me stuff about my family that I needed him to say. And I get to California. I flew out the next day to Cali, and soon I land on the surface on the thing, I got texts and calls. My uncle died, passed away
Wow.
that
Wow.
fast. So like all this stuff started happening, and then go training. I had to go train with the mindset I lost my uncle, but I got the closure from that, so I was okay training. I wasn't like ruined. I wasn't able to take the fight. I just knew it was like this. So fighting Andy Lee and then get to the fight and it was a draw. So it was like
Right.
I started to get losing my uncle, then all these different. I sat down with Al. We picked all the dudes. I picked Andy Lee. I picked Danny Jacobs. I picked David Lemieux. I picked Gennady Golovkin. All was these people that I was willing to fight, and it was like
Right.
lining it up, and it's what ended up happening. So
Right. Yeah, I watched that fight with Andy Lee the other day. Really good fight, And you guys were kind of like on the trajectory to fight because you guys had a lot of common opponents. You guys fought on the same cards a lot. And, I think you came out early. I think you dropped him early. And did you think the fight was going to be a little easier than it wound up being, or it kind of played out the way you thought it would be?
when you're in the midst of the fight. Yeah, I never had an idea. I'm saying everything that was supposed to be told to me in that moment was going to tell it. So I learned that he was coming, and it was like that fight was meant for me the way that it happened.
Right. Very, very close fight. I mean, I think you probably edged it out, but
A lot of people
listen,
think
right, by like a round or two.
can't
But
you
when they
can't
have it,
you can't cry over spoon milk.
right, and listen, it's not a
Oh,
loss.
let me tell you
So
what happened. You see these?
right,
This is why I feel like I lost. Right. So my tooth back in the day used to have one missing tooth, and then I had like a guy that when you meet these people in boxing, they always selling bullshit all the time. I'm
right,
sorry, they selling bullshit. So the dude said, "Let me fix your grill," and my dad always told me never take nothing for nobody for free. He
right,
told me that. My wife was when I took my wife at that time meet this dentist, and he told me he fixed it. I let him touch my mouth, and when I found out about this guy, he wasn't supposed to be even operating because of a lot of different lawsuits and different stuff. And I let him fix my teeth. And when I fought Danny Jacobs, I had some veneers that he made, and he basically um, he basically knocked my veneers, but he broke my veneers in the fight.
right,
And in the last round or the 10th round, he broke it in 10 rounds. The last two rounds, I told my trainer, don't touch my teeth. Don't leave my mouthpiece in. And like, I had to worry
right,
about giving an interview. Like, I was worried about doing an interview and none of my teeth was in my mouth.
right. Yeah,
So
I did
that's
remember
why
you saying that in the corner, like, oh
I,
my,
I didn't,
something on my tooth.
yeah, I didn't engage with him in the last couple of rounds where that's the edge. I could have just didn't care. But
Right,
that's what happened. I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to get hit in my teeth no more. That's
right.
what happened. Not to make that as an excuse, but that's a real thing. And then one day,
Right.
hopefully, what I'll do, I got a picture of what my teeth looked like underneath and what I was dealing with before those fights. And when I went to the fight with Danny Jacobs, this was the first time I had no veneers. I fought with no teeth in my mouth.
Wow. Really. All right. So, now that you bring that one up, I definitely want to talk about that one. In December of 2015, you fought Danny Jacobs at the Barclays Center in a really big fight. I believe he had a version of a title as well. And let's get into that fight. Obviously, it ended, in the first round. I don't want to knock Harvey Dock. I think Harvey Dock's an excellent ref. Local New York ref. He's been around a long time. But I feel like he kind of second guessed himself on stopping that fight. Obviously, Jacobs landed a really big shot. I think it was on like the temple area, and it definitely made you be on unsteady legs. But it seemed like the ref thought about stopping it or thought about giving a count because obviously there's no standing 8 counts in the pro game, and well, not in New York at least it ain't. And then he kind of went back, and then he just kind of waved it off. So did you feel like he stopped it too early in that fight?
Let me tell you something. I'm going to reveal something to you. Okay. When I was going to fight him, I made the decision to go do my camp in Miami. I felt like I want to be around Cuban culture, Cuban people. That's going to inspire me, the weather. And I was going to camp 8 weeks into camp at 195 pounds.
Wow.
You hear that?
So I know you're a big dude, but damn, that's really big.
195 in 8 weeks. And
Wow.
when I went weighing to fight, I weighed 159 pounds. I took Memo Heredia to camp, and people already know his history with, sports and stuff. But, basically, I made the weight. I paid him to make sure I can make that weight. So I didn't want to
Wow.
embarrass myself. So I did a lot of stuff. I had to go training, taking supplements, and to the point where it's I lost so much weight. If y'all look at the fight, which then when I went to my wife couldn't even look me in my face. She said, "I can't do this.
Wow.
You got to be done with this." So I lost. I was looking like a skeleton. I got a
Right.
picture of it, and yeah, basically, when I fought Danny and the first shot he hit me with, I couldn't take it. Yeah, I
Right.
couldn't take it, man. I lost so much weight that I honestly felt like I beat myself before I got to the ring. Not to take anything from him, and
Right.
it was the first fight I had. I got a concussion in that fight.
Wow.
Yeah, so I Danny Jacobs' team already knew I had problems with my weight. I was fighting my weight for all my whole career. But who was in my camp that was supposed to say, "Yo, it's time for you to move up"? That's
Right.
that's the question I ask myself every day. Why? And I try to get the fight at a catch weight, and he wouldn't budge.
Right. So
So
so it
not
was a go ahead.
go ahead. No, I want to hear what you was about to
Well,
say.
I was gonna ask, was it like a real struggle to get down to 160?
Yes, it was.
Right.
I had to do a lot. That's why I would tell most people that a fighter that's making weight always see the brink of death all the time. I've seen death a lot of times, bro.
Right.
Making the weight from salt baths, everything. I could now I'm retired. I could talk about I have to take an IV,
Wow.
to get my, that type of stuff, being on every diet in the world, willing to damn near eat kangaroo meat to me, all this type of stuff, the philosophies behind fighting, is made it hard for me to even talk about boxing because of all the trauma that boxing has brought me. Like,
Right.
I spent time with Virgil Hunter. I feel like if I had a trainer like Virgil Hunter my whole career, I would still be undefeated
Wow. Yeah, Virgil,
because
excellent trainer.
no, the mindset is totally not like no other trainer I've ever been around in my life.
Right.
I'll tell you right now, and he cared, and he really cared for the fighter. So he understand got the best philosophy I ever heard when it comes down breaking down the fight game like he do. Kind of made me feel like actually I was after the fight with Danny, I went to go train with Verge and basically I was trying to make a comeback and I was losing my family, I was about to get divorced with my wife, all this type of stuff and it was like the worst dream, the worst nightmare was not that losing the fight was like losing people I thought was support. I lost so many people, like that was frauds. Like there was like you'll learn that everybody loves a winner chicken dinner, and
Right.
so many people want to be around you because you winning. Everybody wants to be attached to a winner, and most fighters they have all these entourages is because usually it's the same situation I had. You want to know what that situation was?
What's that?
Not being able to say no. When you
Right.
can't say no, it creates a real big problem when you're not able to say no. I was just with Edgar Berlanga the other day, and I asked him, and he told me that he had to put up these walls around him. And now, when you start to be a winner, like I respect Andre Ward because the way he came in the game and he was protected by God, like God chose him and covered him and protected him his whole career. And like he had an idea about God. But my career, I never had an idea about God or anything higher. I believe, but it was like a false religion, a false state of mind. And I learned later in my career, like God found me through loss of my life and turmoil and all those
Right.
different things, and I was able to be picked up and dust off.
Right. So after the fight with Jacobs, you had about a 2-year layoff, right? And
Yeah.
after that, you came back in 2018, and actually you had a really big win over Jalen Love, who was a big prospect in his day at super middleweight. Did you feel a little more comfortable, making the 168 limit?
That's the easiest fight I ever had. One of my easiest fights, to
Really?
be honest with you. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I
And it
had
was
fun.
impressive for sure. It looked like
Yeah,
you were having fun out there.
yeah, I was kind of broken because Floyd Mayweather from my hometown. I really looked up to Floyd to the point where it's like it hurt me to see him rooting for the dude that he put in there to beat me, knowing that we from the same city.
Right. Like he was
Yeah,
he
the
was
Floyd.
backing him. He was backing him over you, right? Right.
Yes,
Yeah, he was
knowing
he
the
was a hot
history.
prospect for a while, Jay Leon Love for sure. But
Yeah.
but you put an end to that, or at least you were the start to the end of that for sure.
Yes.
So, and then after that, was there any other fights that were kind of like in the makings? Before we talk about your last fight, was there anything that kind of was supposed to happen that didn't happen, or was there any fights that you were kind of sorting out that didn't happen around that
No,
time,
I
Bond?
think honestly, if I would have beat Danny Jacobs, my next fight was gonna be like Canelo.
Well, that's actually one. I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to mention that because I think the time frame after the Jacobs fight, I believe Jacobs got the Triple G fight. So was that kind of like a fight that was gonna like the winner of that was gonna get the fight with Triple G? Was that kind of talked about beforehand, or
No,
that's something that just
but
kind of happened?
you kind of figured like you already know that's gonna come. Those are the big names that just
Right.
come after victories and wins like that.
Right. Plus, I think Triple G was trying to unify at that time, so I know he was trying to go after all the other titles. So I guess Jacobs had the WBA strap, I believe, and I think he was going after that. So that's why that fight wound up happening. All right, so let's get into the last fight of the career. I actually watched that the other day as well against another very durable opponent, tough Mexican fighter named Alfredo Angulo. That was at 168 as well, I believe, right?
Angulo, yeah, right. Yeah. Honestly, there's only one moment in that fight that really realized that it's probably time for me to retire.
Really.
Yeah, it's one moment that happened to me. Tell
And
me
what
if
was
you want to
that?
know.
Of course.
Him breathing in my ear.
Really.
He was breathing in my ear like it sounded like a bull. Like you, yo,
Really.
yo. I might not even be able to like. I don't even like the way how it sounds in my ear like that. Like, yo, I
Right.
think this is gonna be my last joint right here. Like the way he was
Right.
breathing in my ear, and he was coming. I was hitting him with some joints, and he was
Right.
still coming. He's just like, yeah, man, maybe it's just I ain't got it no more.
Right.
Started
Well.
saying like, yeah. So and then I still get people. My whole goal was like to set something like I was gonna go for 40 fights before I turned 40 years old.
Right.
I made that up to my mind, but then it was like I don't think my mindset would have took it. It was becoming harder when you have family. I had a family and wife and kids, and being present in them. It's like I think it's very important to be present around your kids.
Of
Like
course.
it's like the way I grew up, especially all the mindset stuff. Like I know other people do it the other way, so I try to like train at home. Like I could sleep in my bed with my wife and all that type of stuff, and it just like my mindset totally changed because I feel like you gotta kind of be selfish when you being a boxer. You
Absolutely.
can't
I was
like
just gonna say that
you
boxing is a very selfish sport. You got to be, dedicated. There's no half-ass in boxing. You got to be in it, 100%, and everything with the dieting and the way you're sleeping, and every time you're working out multiple times a day. So it's definitely it's hard on the women for sure.
yeah.
They don't appreciate that part of it. So basically, yeah, I mean, Angulo was a very tough fighter, though. I mean, listen, he always kind of gave everyone a run for their money. He was very, very, very tough guy. Had a lot of power, had some snap, but yeah. So when you decided that after that, you wanted to retire, was it a situation where it was like, listen, if I can't beat a guy like that, I think I'm done, or was it more just kind of in your head before the fight that you were already hanging it up?
No, I didn't think like that. Don't like every time you take a loss like that, you setting yourself behind.
Right.
So I was like, I got to get closer to a bigger fight than farther away from it. And so like, the more time I set myself behind, and then I liked how my record, how it looked,
Right.
34, 2 losses, I can deal with that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's a
I
very,
could have
very good
probably went for a
career.
3 fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, but then it's like, yeah, I just feel like God was telling me, I've got some Bible scriptures that I read when I was like going and meditating on that fight. I took a walk and I found some Bible scriptures, 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 11, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 57. They said that this thing of death is sin, and then it's the law, and then it says that your labor in the Lord is not done in vain. He said, I do not fight like a boxer, fighting and beating there. No, I strike a blow to my body so that I discipline my body enough to preach the gospel. So basically, it's like everything I was doing up to that point was I try to make it about God, but it's still about me. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
and I just got to the point where I was just like getting dignity and say, I need to have new inspiration, new goal setting for my life. Unless I can make a goal to be a world champion, I'm not just going to be trying to collect money, because money, you can sell your soul off of money. And I already turned down a lot of money. So shouldn't be the driving force. So,
Right.
and that's where I'm at right now on the line talking to you now.
Right. So was there ever any talks about a fight with Triple G?
Yeah, of course.
Was it around that time after the Angulo fight, or was it
All the
like a
time.
little
It was
before
like
that?
I heard that my whole career. I sparred Triple G a few times.
Really?
Yeah, in California, in Wild Card. Me, Chavez, and Triple G did a round robin. So sparred Triple G. Me and Chavez sparred Triple G on Monday, Wednesday, and then Friday. So Monday, Triple G would stay up there the whole like how many rounds we did. I don't know if it was 8 to 10 rounds. And then Wednesday it will be Chavez stay in the ring, and then Friday was me. So it's like Chavez would come in the ring, and then Triple G would come in the ring with me, and I had to fight. That's how we got it for a whole week. And then I end up seeing them putting up the video of like Triple G and Chavez sparring, but then they never put the video of me
Right.
and him.
I was just about to say that. I seen the footage of Triple G handling Chavez pretty easily, but I never seen any footage with you. So what was the experience
That
like
was
with
that was that
sparring?
was the same. That was that video you seen was in the same day I'm talking about right now.
Really?
Yeah, that was the same day I sparred him.
And what
Yeah,
was the experience like with working with Triple G?
like any other fighter. Like you have moments where you get to see the quality of a fighter and what he comes with and why they write about him the way they do and what he comes to
Right.
bring to the game. I would say that when I sparred him, he did have a big presence. Like his
Right.
presence was big, but it wasn't nothing like I never seen it before. Like it made me scared. Like I boxed him like I boxed Chavez that day. Like I had got a mindset that everything he's made it to the point where I'm at this place. And then we end up being cool. So I let the fans affect the way I looked at him. Like I almost thought that he had issues. But when we bumped into each other in California, he's like, Peter, and gave me a big hug. I'm like,
Right.
oh shit. It's like it's not what they think. So I had to separate the fans' love for a fighter to who the actual fighter is.
Right. All right, so we're about to start wrapping it up, but just a couple more questions that I got for you. Um, Who was one like the fastest guys that you ever sparred with or got in a ring with? Like when you got in a ring, whether it was a fight or a sparring session where you just said like, "Wow, this guy's got some just really really quick hands."
I want to say, I want to know if it was even if I want to tell you, which I've been boxing everybody. I want to tell you, I was in New Jersey and I was sparring somebody at this gym, and he ended up coming to spar with me, and I'm like, oh, this kid got some skills, and I think it was Bruce Ennis.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, this guy got some skills. Well, like, I didn't know who he was at that time, but I want to say that I want to believe that was him that I was sparring that day. But I'm not sure. I can't tell you. But
Right.
it's not really no names to the point where like, this person, like that person. Like I sparred so many people, it's just like everybody brought something different. But I can remember that person in Jersey, and maybe it's because I thought him. I think it was Bruce Ennis because he was up and coming.
Right. All right. So another question I want to ask too is like as far as the power aspect, like who would you ever get in the ring with where it was like right away you knew like, wow, I got to be on my game today because this guy's got just some massive power.
Sergey Kovalov.
Wow.
Kovalov. Really? Yes. And not the type of punch where it's like just hard. It's the one that was like boom, like damn, I can't like that.
Right. Yeah, the Crusher had some massive power, and he had some really sharp, straight punches. So I could definitely see that. I didn't even know you worked with him. What point in your career was that at?
I forgot, but we was doing camps in Big Bear,
Right.
so that's what I would tell you.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else you want to add to it? Obviously, what you're doing now is a really, really great thing. Working out the the gym in the Bronx. With Cops and Kids, Bronx Legends, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
To tell us a little bit about that, like the process of doing that and training the kids and giving back to the community and stuff like that.
I would tell you all together, Bronx Legends. I'm in there Monday through Friday, working with kids. We got. I'm looking at Texas right now, on the phone. They talking about some kids that's fighting. I gotta make a call after, but yeah, I got an opportunity from Jay Balger, who shot the documentary Counterpunch with me. Then me and him and Cam Newton from USA Boxing, who's one of our heavyweight representatives, and B Hop, Chris Colbert, who's in the documentary together. That now Jay has had this idea during the time when he was putting this documentary together. Um, he was telling me that he thought of a free gym, and he kept making sure, asking, making sure, and then came to the point where he made it all happen. And now we serve in the Bronx, and now being around kids who's looking to fight and try to get themselves better, and then bringing a spiritual insight into the kids who's looking for purpose and fighting
Right.
through different turmoil. So I'm doing that, and also I got 3 albums that I'm in. I got 3 albums out dedicated to all my kids. So
Right.
the Seven Scrolls, Lifted by Yahweh, Seven Scrolls of Brave Charity, and Seven Scrolls of Light Through the Little Branches. As the artist name, Brother P, Brothap. I'm putting all the stuff that I ever experienced in my life into the music,
Right.
and I'm just prepping just to keep myself busy and keeping the story and the voice going as far as what God is doing with me right now, and getting to the point where it's like I'm giving my kids the education of my experiences and helping them get. They just walked a runway show day before yesterday, so they got to do stuff that I never done in my life, and the story is going to keep going on. We looking to shoot a part 2 for the documentary. Now me as a thought leader for the gym and face of the gym for Bronx Legends, and just looking at keeping the story ongoing.
Right. Well, that's amazing, Pete. I really appreciate you doing everything you do, and I look forward to to seeing more from you and hearing more from you. And I just want to thank you for joining us today.
Chris, man, I appreciate you and thank you for getting me on. Anytime you need me, just reach out to me. I'm here for you.
Of course. Thank you.
God bless.
God bless, Bill.